I'm Matt Stephans. This is Tracy Winter, and this is Coach to Coach. Welcome, Tracy. Thank you for being with me today.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Matt. I'm excited to be here.
Wonderful. I'm excited to have you. So I want to start with our normal 3 questions. So the first question is, what makes you or your field unique?
So I'm a professional coach, and I specialize in neurodiversity. So I'm a neurodiversity coach. And what makes that unique actually is I'm working with unique brains. I mean, each brain is unique, each person is unique and has their own special way of being in the world. And also, there's a lot of people who are more like each other than the folks that I work with. So I get to work with really interesting brains that have different layers of sort of different ways of being built and wired and functioning and interacting with the world. So label-wise, that means I work with a lot of ADHDers, autistic folks, dyslexic folks, gifted, PTS, dyspraxic. It's kind of a long list. And usually they travel in clumps. So it's not usually one kind of neurodiversity. It's usually multiple kinds of neurodivergences that are overlaid. So each brain is unique. My clients are actually what makes my field unique, is because my clients are often very different from most people and also very different from each other. So that uniqueness, like they bring that to me.
That's wonderful. What a great description. Thank you. And then our second question is, how do you know if you or your client have won or lost?
So this is not sidestepping the question. This is actually how I think.
Yeah.
Won or lost is binary.
Fair.
And as soon as I feel a binary thing coming on, I'm like, what's a third choice?
Great.
Not necessarily what's a compromise, right? Not like here, but what's a third choice? And try not to get stuck in, is it winning or is it losing? Is it something that's moving someone in the direction they want to move? Winning sounds like there is a particular goal or a particular standard to hit. And I don't have one of those. Whereas it's like, if I ask my client, how are we doing? They say, I'm moving in the right direction. I'm feeling better. I feel like I'm, doing what I want to be doing. I feel like I'm becoming more and more of the me I want to be. That's a win. Now, the little wins are things like when I ask my client a question and they go, that's a good question. And inside, I'm just having a little party. When they've felt something deeply, when we've really gotten into the thing and it's changing perspective, and I can see that happening, like I'm having a little party inside. I'm empathetic to what's going on for them. And also I know we're doing something that is going to have like effect, and hopefully the effect that the person wants it to have. So those are the little wins that, like, internally while I'm coaching, I go, ooh, yeah, okay.
I love it. And then the third question is, how do you hold people accountable?
First, I ask them, right? I'm a coach, so I ask my clients when I don't know. I don't get to decide how they're held accountable. I ask my clients if and how they want to be held accountable. And in my world, this is a really, it's a very balanced thing to have to try to like negotiate each time, because I coach a lot of ADHDers. And so they come looking for accountability. And also, if you hold people too accountable, they feel like failures, there's shame, there's guilt. This is what they've been feeling for the first 53 years of their life. Like, this is not helping them make progress. So what I tell them right at the beginning is, we're going to design some experiments based on new awareness that we develop. And then let's see what happens. If you do it, you don't do it, it crashes and burns, it like flies, something in between. We now have data to work with. So one way or another, it's data. So am I holding them accountable for doing their homework? I don't use the word homework. I don't use the word goals with my clients. It's because it has all of this weight to it that has come, right? So how do I hold them accountable? However they want me to hold them accountable, within reason. I also pay attention to my own boundaries. So I know, like, sometimes they'll ask me, can you follow up with me every day? Can you send me a text every day? They usually ask this in the discovery call, because I don't let it get far enough. And I'm like, probably not, no. Because I'm not that I don't want to, not that I would love to give you that support, but 2 things. One, I know I won't do it. That's just not going to be something that I don't have that kind of detail orientation to make sure that happens every day. But second, I also don't want them to become dependent on me. If I'm the only one holding them accountable, then what happens when I'm not coaching them anymore? What happens when, hopefully, like, our job is to work ourselves out of a job. So if I'm holding them strictly accountable, how do they learn how to hold themselves accountable outside of me or find other methods of accountability? So one of the ways I help them stay accountable as opposed to me holding them accountable is finding other kinds of accountability out in the world. That's kind of a meandering answer. Yeah.
I love it. No, it's great, right? Because what I hear in your specialty, and we're going to talk about this here in a second, is that holding people accountable in the way that it might normally show up or be normalized in the world. To go back to the answer to the second question, isn't going to provide your clients the sense of moving forward or being successful.
Right.
And yes. What that sounds like to me is that because you work with, as you said, unique brains, right? Because you work with unique brains, you have to interact with them from different points of view or with different uses of the same tools that, for instance, I as a coach might use, because what I say coaching is all about is making sure my clients are empowered, that they know that they can affect the circumstances around them, that they have say in the dominion of their life. And the tools that I might use for a client wouldn't be successful in providing that with your client. And so you have to find a way to accomplish the same thing, but not using that tool in the same way.
I would totally agree, because I probably wouldn't have used those words, but I agree that helping our clients be empowered in their lives, including in our coaching relationship, that's part of that, is key. And you're right, as a matter of fact, some of my clients have come to me after they've seen other coaches who are not familiar with neurodiversity, and they've been harmed. We always say, Coach, you can't harm anybody with coaching. We're just asking questions. No, you can, right? So if we are embedding those shame cycles and those guilt cycles more by approaching them in a way that does not hold them, right? Hold who they are and who they want to be in the way they need it, we could be doing extra harm to them. So yes, absolutely.
So I love it. So let's talk more specifically about your field. So you said you're a neurodiversity coach. You do neurodiversity coaching. Can you say more about what that means?
Sure. So what it means is it's neurodiversity coach sounds sort of like a static boxy thing, which is not how it is. It's a very flowy thing because it's okay. So some of the questions I get asked about it, like, do I have to have a diagnosis of ADHD, autism, blah, 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 to see you as a neurodiversity coach? No. A lot of my clients don't have a diagnosis, wouldn't necessarily describe themselves as a neurodivergent person. But they connect with something in something they've seen that I've talked about on my website, where I don't anywhere use the words ADHD, neurodivergent, neurodiversity, none of those are on my website. Gifted is there halfway through my FAQ, buried in. So it's something about the way I'm talking about things that are what people connect around. So no, you don't have to have a diagnosis. In fact, many people don't. And also I'm taking part of working with these very unique people, very unique is not a thing. Part of working with these unique brains is that it's almost like the principles of coaching have to apply even more strongly. I go in with as few assumptions as possible. I don't say, oh, you're autistic, therefore this, and this, right? What I'm looking at is, who is this person? What can I find out to understand the world through their eyes? Once I can understand the world through their eyes, then I can ask them the questions that help them open and become bigger. So that's true for anybody in coaching. And also there's just a little more twists and turns and pitfalls when you're working with these kinds of things. Shoot, what was the question?
The question was, tell me more about neurodiversity coaching.
Oh, good. I was doing that a little.
You were doing a great job. Well, and one of the things that stands out for me is, right, everybody is unique. Everybody is an individual. Nobody is going to counter that. And as you said, many people are unique, but in a certain sphere. And there are people who are more of an outlier from that sphere. And what I think in that is that because they're outside of that sphere even more, they're going to be different from each other even more. So you're dealing with a wide variety of different personality types, of different, as I say, machinery, the core mechanisms of the brain. You're dealing with a lot of that. So, I mean, one of the highest compliments I've gotten was with a client that I just completed with. And her comment to me was that I adapt so well on the fly. If something's off or something's different and I think that's a skill that all coaches have. It seems like for you, that's not adapting. That's every day, every client, every session.
Every moment of every session.
Yeah.
Yeah. And oftentimes, because these folks don't have other people who get them as much, sometimes I'm the first person who's been able to do that. You might have that experience too. But like, I remember a client I had who was PhD level, autistic ADHD, highly gifted, and then was explaining sort of like the way of the world to me around a specific topic. And I don't remember exactly what she was saying, but it was clear that this was not the way most people saw it. And I went, okay, and asked a question, like I accepted her world building that she had given me. Instead of, okay, so within this world building, here's the question, right? And she was dumbfounded for a second because I didn't argue with her.
Yeah.
I didn't argue with her framework and her way of seeing the world. I was like, well, that's going to go nowhere. Especially with someone who's autistic, oftentimes they're going to hang on to their framework. So if I go, okay, given that, what about this? They go, and like, it's such a privilege to be able to do that with and for someone. On the one hand, I'm sad that they haven't had that experience so often that it's common. And on the other hand, I find it such a privilege to get to do that with them.
It's really beautiful.
Exactly what you're talking about. It is, what am I hearing that I need to adjust any nuance, and engender that trust that they haven't been able to trust very many people with their inner worlds.
Yeah.
I've gotten good responses to that. So,
I would imagine.
Very precious.
Yeah. It's one of the things that I hear and witness inside of personal development is there's a large number of people who feel that in personal development or in coaching, it's the first time that they've actually had the experience in life of being heard.
Yes.
And many people get frustrated because Bob won't just stop saying the same thing over and over and over again. It's like, I've heard this story before. Bob never has the experience that anybody actually hears the story, so he's going to keep telling it. And inside of a coaching or a personal development standpoint, just having people experience what it's like to be heard and gotten can be the most mind-blowing thing for them. And I imagine that's only amplified for somebody who has some sort of a diagnosis or whose brain works in such a way that they already feel different than quote unquote normal, that it heightens all of that as well.
So you just kind of described my dissertation research, except I called it being seen instead of being heard.
Tell me more about that. I want to hear about your dissertation.
So I'll tell you a little bit, and I won't go ask somebody about their dissertation or their current research, and if we're an academic, and we're just going to go, oh, let me tell you all. So I will try to be succinct, and when you get bored, you tell me. So it's called, my dissertation is called Being Seen, Self-Concept Development in Highly Gifted Adults. So I come to neurodiversity through the gifted lens first. And it was about this. It was about the self-concept is formed by the reflections we get from other people. So this concept of just be yourself is actually ridiculous. That's not how we work. It would be great. And also for some of us, it's not safe to just be ourselves. We have learned that. So if that works great if the reflections you are getting align with who you believe yourself to be, which is most people. But if the reflections that you're getting are from people who are holding up like kind of funhouse mirrors, right? So they understand you as misshapen or too fat or too small or too tall or like, right, out of proportion, whatever. Like, and those are the reflections that you're getting to understand yourself. That's really confusing. And it can be really hurtful because I'm going, I don't see myself that way, but all those other reflections are all the ones I'm getting. Where, like, what do I believe? What do I know? And so for people who are in that outlier space, like you're talking about, because I studied highly gifted adults, but I suspect, and from what I hear, it's true for a lot of other kinds of outlying folks. When they do get one of those reflections of like a flat mirror, it's like, one of my participants described it as, it's like the clouds open and the sun shines down like in a spotlight on you, and it's just warm, and you just stand there and bask because it's so infrequent that somebody gets it, right? So yes, exactly what you said. And for most people, most coaches can do that for them. And for my clients, a lot of coaches can't because they don't understand that experience, or they don't understand the differences that are real beyond just each person is unique. And so like that is my primary, like one of my primary objectives in coaching is to see the person with a capital S, to see the person in a way that aligns with who they believe themselves to be. And the next step of it is, and a little amplified, right? Here's who I believe you could be, given what I know. So like one of the images I used was like a kitten looking in a mirror, looking at a lion.
Yeah.
And you can't make that jump in coaching, but you can, the ugly duckling and the swan was actually the beginning of my dissertation. So I bring all of that into my life.
That's wonderful.
What's that bring up for you?
Well, for me, it's a very personal thing to relate to. I grew up with a single mom who raised me until I was 13. And then I went to live with my father. I was an only child. I was very gifted, very intelligent, and a nightmare to raise. And when I went to a new city with a new school, I went into 7th grade. That was the middle of middle school. So everybody already had their cliques and groups. And because I'd been around adults all my life, primarily, the way that you get attention and the way that I would be rewarded was by showing how smart I was, right? I'd play Othello at the bar with, random person, or I'd talk about things that, a 7-year-old shouldn't, know or whatever. And so my entire life, I had been geared for the way that you get attention, make friends, be popular, is let people know how intelligent you are. And in 7th grade, that's a terrible plan.
I learned that too.
Yes.
I'm kind of the same way.
And the worst part was I was not the smartest kid in 7th grade. I was second smartest. Number one, I won't say his name because I don't have permission, but he was clearly brilliant on another level and the nicest human being on the planet. So popular, well-loved, like everything I wanted to be, but had no access to because all I knew was, well, keep showing people how smart I am. And that just gets you hit in the mouth, quite literally. And so dealing with that as a child and as a young adult and as an older adult, right, has always been something for me to deal with. How do I be myself, as you so beautifully said, but be myself in a way that actually also gets me the reactions that I want? The comment, as you said, just be yourself, is not helpful if what I think I'm already doing is being myself, and not getting the results that I want out of that, well, then I would like to stop being myself, and I'd like to be that guy because he seems like he's just killing it. How do I be that guy? And of course, the point that we want to get through to people is that, you know, everybody is special and nobody needs to be judged, and a number of other messages that taken independently are wonderful, but don't necessarily show up in the real world the way that I think we would like them to.
Well, and what you just described is how we end up masking. So that's a term coming from the autistic field, but we've applied it all over the place in neurodivergence. And masking is the way I think of it is it's sort of an extreme version of self-presentation. So we self-present in a way all the time that we accommodate the world or we get the reaction that we want to. For instance, I was taught, and I'm a theater kid, if you go to the theater, you dress for the theater, right? So I don't go to the theater in jeans. Plenty of people do, and that's totally fine. But the way I understand that is you dress for the theater because it's respectful to the performance and it's respectful to the art form. That's self-presentation. Masking is when you are trying to be what the other person wants you to be so much, and it's so far from who you are, right? That drains energy and can do actual mental damage, like mental health damage. They've shown in research. So what I'm hearing is, I don't want to be me. I want to be that guy. Okay, let me take that mask and put it on myself. I can learn it to the best of my ability, which I'm going to screw it up a lot, by the way.
Yeah,
I'm trying hard, right? And that's some of what I deal with my folks, is people who've been masking for so long and it doesn't work anymore. They don't even know they're masking. And so what gets uncovered? And I'm not here to remove anybody's mask because that can be kind of traumatic. So it's a whole, sort of ecosystem that comes from everything that you're talking about. But yeah, like you just described what a lot of my clients, are dealing with and trying to figure out.
And what I hear in that is it's an amplification of something that I think most coaches try and work with their clients on in personal development. A big part of what my clients walk away with is being able to distinguish between my machinery, my core automatic functions, regulating my breathing, safety whenever I see danger. That has me see a lot of things as dangerous, right? It's better to err that direction than the other. And what I call self, spirit, soul, take the word, that lines up for you, which is, what do I want in life? Who do I want to actually be in life? Compassion, love, generosity, a force of nature, magic, a light, whatever that is. And being able to distinguish between these two things that have the same voice and come from the same spot, right? How do I distinguish between myself and my machinery in a way that I can be more of the former and less of the latter when it's not necessary for me to actually survive? And as a child, survival can feel like it's based on being accepted, being popular, etc. Things that as adults we try and poo-poo, but are still also valuable. We just have often better ways of coping or dealing with it, or we have learned more of the structures for being who we need to be. As you say, I think I'm describing masking.
I think that's true. I mean, it's hard. You can't find belonging if you're masking, and we all want belonging in our community. Even we extreme introverts, and I put myself in that spot, like when I find community, and that means people who understand me as I am and reflect me as I am in a way that aligns with who I am, right? It doesn't have to be, but it can just be like, hey, I like you the way you are. But I have to feel enough trust just to let that out in the first place, right? So it's not just like people. It's got to be the people who get it and can be kind and compassionate in a way that even we might not be to ourselves, but they can almost teach us that. And what's interesting for a lot of neurodivergent folks is our machinery is more sensitive. Many different kinds of neurodivergences come with a more sensitive nervous system, literally. And so our machinery is acting differently. Our machinery performs differently. And if we don't know that, by the way, like, we think we should be just like everybody else because, like, of course, that works for that person. Why wouldn't it work for me? We're both humans. But if I have a different nervous system, then that's like my responses to things are going to look out of proportion relative to yours. And also, like, my nervous system has a lower threshold for hitting that, like, overwhelm or emotional, like, I feel emotions really deeply. I feel emotions so deeply that I think I turned them off when I was a kid before I knew what to do with them. Right? So, like, but my responses can look out of proportion. And that's where when you're talking about the empowerment, which I heard of early on, which I also heard is like agency, right? So, like, I hear these things and I allow these things to be part of me. And then I have enough self-management to make a choice about what do I want to do with it, right? And that is a thing that can be more difficult for my clients because of that sensitive nervous system. Because of things like part of executive function challenges is emotional regulation. That's an executive function thing. And that's sometimes what's affected by neurodiversity. So learning those things is really key for us to get along in a world that isn't made for us. Like, how do I be authentic? And this, and you see the layers.
Yeah, and one of the things that stuck out for me in what you said, right, is the desire or need for belonging, right? For somebody to say, I like you just as you are. And if somebody is spending their life being differently than they want to be because they have to, I would imagine that someone telling that person, I like you just the way you are, isn't a feeling of belonging. If anything, it is harder for them to deal with because the immediate response is, well, that's not good news because I'm not letting anybody see who I really am. So whatever it is you like, by definition, isn't me.
It's really a quandary because that's exactly what happens, right? So, like, you get that response and it's reinforcing the mask. It's reinforcing this way that you are trying to be so that you fit in, which is different than belonging, right? So it's reinforcing. So it takes a lot of courage and a lot of discernment to figure out where can I open my walls this much and just venture out and see what the response is with this particular person. And sometimes you get smacked down and you close those walls up again. Mm-hmm. It's real hard to pry them back open. And sometimes it's like, oh wait, you're reinforcing the things about me that I like too. Or the things that I don't like about me because nobody else likes them, but you like that, huh? That feels kind of good. What if I let you see this much? What if I let you see this much? Right? But it's an act of courage to do that for a lot of my clients.
Yeah.
I say for a lot of my clients, I am my client. It's an act of courage for us to do that.
Well, and I hear the profound love and compassion that you have for your client, which is a prerequisite to being able to relate to them. I have a question that may sound like it should have an automatic correct answer.
Oh, I love those because I never do.
Oh, wonderful. It sounds like it requires an incredible level of patience and tolerance for people who may not be interacting in a way that, for lack of a better term, let's say works in a coaching relationship. Do you encounter that? And does it require, in your opinion, more for you to interact with somebody? For instance, somebody who may not be coachable, who may not be willing to take your point of view in place of theirs when theirs doesn't serve them, or who may get loud or anything like that.
So my first response is, I have no idea if it takes more because this is what I do.
Yeah.
I occasionally have someone who's not in this population, and I find that challenging in a different way because like there's not as much interest, like there's not as much happening, right, for me to play around in. I mean, you mentioned because they're not coachable. So a lot of times people that are like my clients, that's what people say is they're not coachable. I've never met anybody who's not coachable. Not yet. And maybe I will, but like, or do you meet your client where they are? Right? Like, if not coachable implies this is the way coaching works and you don't fit in it. That's the antithesis of what we've been talking about, right? So like my job as a coach is to meet you where you are. Now, what's holding you back from taking this perspective and doing just this much to it, right? That's part of my job to help us figure out. So, yeah, like, I don't know what, I'm sure there are people who are not coachable. And also, I don't think they're seeking out coaching, maybe, you know? So there's that. Who are not willing to give up their point of view to take on my point of view. What I was talking about earlier, like the client example I gave is, I don't expect anybody to take my point of view. Absolutely not. Why would they? My point of view doesn't incorporate everything that they are. My job is to take their point of view and say, what else is going on in here? What about this part right here? What's going on there? And they go, oh, I never looked at that part. What is going on there? Right? So my job is to ask the questions and see if anything, sparks. And because my clients are interested and interesting and curious, like they are actually curious a lot of the time, like they're excited to figure that out. And then sometimes, once I build enough trust and safety, once we have a relationship, then I might say, so this is coming to my mind. Can I throw it out there and see what you think? And I say a thing, and then I might say, what's that spark for you? Or sometimes I say, I've got this thing and I can't get it out of my brain. It's getting in the way. Can I say it and then you can tell me why it won't work? And they go, sure. And that frees them up also to have the permission to tell me I'm off my rocker. And my job is to not get attached to my point of view. If I'm trying to get them to take my point of view, if I'm trying to convince my client, I'm not doing my job right. Not the way I want to do my job. I shouldn't say right. I'm not doing my job the way I want to.
Well, what I really hear in there is the ability, which is a learned skill, in my opinion, of not only being able to see the world from somebody else's point of view, whether or not it is your point of view, but then the next level that I think is required, as you said, to have people feel safe, is that the other person knows you're looking at the world from their point of view, and they're certain that you see it the way that they do, which is the only time that you could then be able to say, what if we just looked like just right over there? What about that spot? And then go from there.
Yes, I totally agree with that. And as you say that, I'm thinking, do I overtly say I see your point? Like, I don't. I think just the questions that I ask, because they flow naturally through that person's brain, hopefully, if I'm on.
Yeah.
Like they settle in, right? They put those defenses down a little bit and they can settle in. And once they've settled in and we have that flow, just from the way I'm speaking and the way I'm reflecting and the way that I'm, which questions I'm asking. And I'm doing this because it's from over here where they're sitting, right? Then we can get at it. But you have to earn it. And with my folks, especially, earning that trust, just proving there's an element of proving myself. It's an element of proving that I'm enough to get you. Especially with my highly gifted clients, they're used to thinking they're ways in circles around people. And therapists, other helping professionals, and I'm like, yeah, but this right here. And they go, yeah. So like there's a proving element sometimes. There's a building of that trust and earning of that trust, so that they can feel like it's a safe place to take some of these things apart and experiment.
It's beautiful. Just beautiful.
Thanks. I don't think it's beautiful. It's just like I'm trying to figure out what I do so I can put it into words for this conversation. But thank you.
Why I say beautiful is it's the conscious effort to relate to somebody else's humanity. And I assert that that is not something that human beings in general and oftentimes in specific are focused on during the day.
That's probably true.
Yeah.
I think it's fun.
Yeah.
I think it's fun.
I would say if you didn't, you wouldn't want to do this as a job.
I always say coaching is the best gig because I get to be curious and surprised all day long. Right? Like that's what I'm describing is I get to be curious about the people. I get to be curious about how they are and how they see the world and see things from different points of view that I would never have come up with by myself. And, you know, when you're a bright person, oftentimes you know what's coming next. And that gets boring. And so the surprising is super fun. To ask questions that neither of us know the answer to is so fun. And that's what I'm trying to, like, I don't do it every time, but that's my goal. I want to ask a question that neither of us know the answer to yet. And that's just, then we're both surprised. It's great.
It's wonderful. So is there anything that we haven't talked about that you want to talk about? Is there anything I should have asked you that I haven't asked you?
I don't know. We've gone so beautifully like into the essence, right? That like, I think I'm immersed in that and I don't know how to come back out and answer that question. I would say what I'm talking about is not exclusive for neurodivergent folks, clients, people out there. The way that I actually think of it and in the school that my partner I've opened to help coaches learn how to do what I'm talking about. We talk about it as neurodiversity inclusive, not just neurodiversity. So the things I'm talking about are things that are great for coaches to do with everybody. And many coaches do. And so like, hopefully that's what, when people say, what do I look for in a coach? You look for that. Look for somebody you feel safe with. You look for somebody who can get it. You look for somebody who is able to do that, with you. That's just super important. So that I'm talking, people are hearing this. And coaching can be so amazing because like, where else do you get that and that kind of focus in your life? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't get many other places than with my coach.
Yeah.
So,
I completely concur.
So yeah, find the coach that's your coach. Find the person that is your person.
Yeah. And that's one of the pieces of advice that I always give to people is there's no right coach. Arguably, there's no wrong coach. And that's why you want to talk to a number of different people to find the one that you connect with. Who do you gel with? It just makes life so much easier than trying to fit either one of you into a mold that is not generally there for that person. Will you tell us about the school and how to find out more information about it?
Sure. So I'll tell you about a couple things. For my practice is called Nerd Coach, and I'll give you a website and all of that and ways to get a hold of me. And I love meeting new people and talking to people. So like, if you just want to reach out and have a chat, I'm excited about that. If you're interested in coaching, I'm excited about that too. The school is called Neurodiversity Coaching Academy. My partner is Kate Arms, and I'll give you that information out there too in case there's some coaches listening to this. Right now we've been giving master classes once a month, and we have recordings available. We give a 90-minute master class for $10. So we want this information out there as much as possible. That's why we keep the gate, low. We don't have like a credential requirement or anything like that. It's anybody who's interested, come on over. We're going to be offering mentor coaching and coaching supervision groups in May, and then we'll have a specialization program for coaches in the fall that will be a chunk program of like, here's how you do this, and here's what we're talking about, and we're going to practice a bunch of this.
That's great. So thank you so much for your time. I'm Matt Stephans. You can find me at www.anexceptionallife.com, as well as wherever you found this recording. Tracy, where can people find you?
My website is www.nerdcoach, and it is nerdcoa.ch. My email is Tracy at that address. You can find me on LinkedIn as well, Tracy Winter. The academy is www.neurodiversitycoachingacademy.com. And if you spell it right the first time, you're doing better than I usually am. I'd love to see you there. And thank you so much, Matt, for this conversation, not just for having me and inviting me. And you know, I always just love to connect with you, but also like you make me put words around things that I haven't yet. And that's just a huge gift. So thank you so much. This has been delightful.
You're welcome.
Other people enjoyed it as much as we did.
I do too. It has been wonderful. It is always wonderful to be able to engage with you. Thank you so much.